Hey everyone, welcome to another video on spreadsheets from Advanced Learning Inc. In this brief video, we're going to look at what is an array formula. Now, array formulas can be thought of as formulas that kind of create helper columns in memory and then processing them and then giving you the result. So many of us, when we want to build a complex formula, we create extra rows and extra columns of data on our spreadsheets, and then we process them. Any formula that requires 3 or 4 steps, we often like to do it in columns or rows, and we call these columns helper columns or helper rows. So let me show you in Excel what I mean by that. So I'm going to take a very small example to show you what that means. So let's take an example of this data that I have on screen and that I'm highlighting just now. Now, if you look at this data, you'll notice that all these cells have a little green triangle on them. That is because none of these cells contain numbers. All of them contain text. And to actually create them as a number, I'm going to have to convert them to a number. Now, usually if I want to do that using a formula, I would go something like this: equals value of text. And then I would drag that down to get the value of that of those items. And at the bottom now I can build a sum. So I'll click on the auto sum button and I'll just simply select that little portion there and get the sum. So this gives me a sum of the column above. And if I try the same thing here at the side, you know that I'm not going to get any result simply because all these elements are text. So this one says 0. This one gives me the correct value because they have been converted into numbers. Now, this process is nothing but creating a helper column. So just like I created this little helper column here at the side and then processed it to get the sum, an array formula would do this entire thing in memory. So that is what an array formula would do, but not on the spreadsheet, not physically on the spreadsheet. So let's take a look at what else is involved. Before we take a look at that, let's also understand what is an array constant. An array constant is simply, just like you had the helper column, the array column is a column or an array of cells that contain constants. And again, they are arrayed either vertically or horizontally. So you could have a vertical array constant or a horizontal array constant. Remember, these are virtual. They don't exist on the spreadsheet. They are in memory. So in this brief video, we're simply going to take one example of creating an array formula. And the example that we're going to take is exactly the same one that I showed you just now, where we used a helper column. So here, for example, as you saw, I had to create a helper column and then total it to get the total of that column. Now, proficient users of Excel might ask, why do I need to do 2 formulas, one in a helper column and one as to total all the cells? So instead of first converting it to a number in a helper column and then obtaining the total at the bottom, why not nest one function inside the other? So you might think we can do something like this: equals sum of the value of the entire range of text, G12 to G19. It sounds logical and we might think that it should work, but if I press enter here, you'll see that I'll get a value error. Why am I getting a value error when the process of nesting is correct? The answer lies in the syntax of the value function. So if you look at the syntax of the value function, it says value of text, which means value of one item of text. And here we're trying to ask the value to handle 7 or 8 items of text. So we are saying value of range or value of a range of cells. That's not allowed because Excel's value function simply says value of text. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to tell Excel to create that helper column in memory, and then after it has created that helper column, sum it up with the sum function. And the process of doing that takes less time than it actually does to say it. And the formula is entered exactly as you have on screen. So what this is going to do is it's going to do the value of these cells, G12 to G19, but it's going to do them cell by cell and arrange them in a column in memory. Now, how do I tell Excel to do that? To tell Excel to do that, it's really very simple. Instead of pressing enter when you are completing your formula, you simply press Control, Shift and Enter together. And as soon as I do that, you're going to see that the formula will work and I will get the sum. So here goes. I'm going to press Control, Shift, Enter. And as soon as I do that, you can see that the formula we obtained was correct. And you can look at the formula here. And you will notice that Excel has put brace brackets around the ends of the formula. Now you cannot do that yourself. Excel has to add them for you, and Excel adds them when you press Control, Shift, Enter. So don't try to enter those brace brackets yourself. Excel will automatically add them for you when you press Control, Shift and Enter. So here it is, a simple array formula that does two operations. It first converts all the cells in the range to a value, and then once it has created that array in memory, so it's created an array of 8 cells in memory, and once it's created those 8 cells, it then sums it up and it gives you the result at the bottom or in the cell in which it was entered. So let me take one more example, and in this example I'm going to use a slightly more advanced formula. I'm going to use the sum product function to total some cost and project data and arrive at a total cost. Now here I have on screen some data about the number of projects that I'm handling, and you will see that I have various different kinds of projects, and each of these projects require a certain amount of resources. Those resources cost some money, and if I want to get the total cost, I would have to go number of projects multiplied by each resource required multiplied by the cost of each resource, and I have to do that for every single cell. Now using plain arithmetic, if I wanted to do that, I would have to set it up in a separate entire grid and then total it up. But some of you would know that you can do this in a single cell using the sum product. But when we use the sum product, we're going to run into one problem because we have some text in here. So let's just see how that plays out. Sum product array 1 multiplied by array 2 multiplied by array 3. And normally this would work really well. Let me get that out of the way. Normally this would work really well, but this time we're going to get an error, and that's the value error is due to this text which is crept in there. Now if we were to replace that text with a 0, we'll get our total. Now we can't go around manually replacing all text with zeros. What we need to do is to have a formula that's going to do that. But the sum product is giving us an aggregate, and while the sum product functions like an array formula, it is not going to replace this text with a 0. What we are going to have to do is, for every single cell in this array, we are going to evaluate whether it is text or a number, and if it is text, replace it with a 0. So we're going to have to do that for every single cell inside the sum product function. And so to be able to do that, we are going to need to create an array formula. So what we're going to do is we're going to edit this sum product formula, and we're simply going to take this array, which is the center one, and we're going to say if any of those cells are text. So we say is text any of those cells, AD 18 to AI 21, then replace it with a 0, otherwise use the corresponding cell from the array. So that completes our if statement. So all we're saying is, for the center array, instead of saying taking the array as it is, evaluate whether it is text, replace it with a 0 if so, otherwise use the original value. Now because we've got to tell Excel to do this cell by cell, we're going to have to create an array formula here. So all we need to do here is instead of pressing enter, we go Control, Shift and Enter. And you can see it gave you the same value as if that text was not there and it was 0. And this is what our array formula looks like. These are examples of what is called a single cell array formula. There are other array formulas which also give you the results in multiple cells, and those are called multi-cell array formulas. So you have two kinds of array formulas, single cell array formulas and multi-cell array formulas. Well, that's all we have time for in this brief video. I hope you enjoyed watching it. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found something useful in it that you can take back to your work.